Next, we'll move on to the Finance and Human Resources Committee meeting. I will chair the meeting for Finance and Human Resources because Mr. Ramsey's on the phone, so we want to make sure everyone can hear clearly. So we are moving on to the Finance and Human Resources Committee. I call this committee meeting to order. I declare a quorum is present and the media has been notified. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Make the motion.
And I've got the second. Mr. Ramsey moved to approve the agenda. Walford with the second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, 2-0. We'll now move on to the 2024-2025 General Fund Budget second reading. Ms. Abrahamson, you are recognized again.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Wofford. If you'll give us 1 second, we got to find the presentation for. It's not much different, but it is a little different than the public hearing. It's not the same. No, it wasn't the same. This is the second reading.
Pretty much. Right here. There's an extra slide at the end.
Which one is it? That one. This one. Okay. Thank you so much. Again, this is our general fund budget. This is actually our second reading. This information will probably look very similar to what you've seen previously, but so again, our millage history over the last 10 years, we're going from 151.8 mills down to 141.9. That's 1 mill lower than we were in 14-15. As of this reading, the final State House budget has not been approved. However, they did make some progress on Friday, and they have plans to meet again on Wednesday. So it's looking like we'll have a final budget around July 2nd. And we've got another action on this agenda to have a contingency plan in place in case that happens. But based on the last update, the Berkeley County School District's budget was decreased by $919,610 because the House 2 budget was overridden and they went back to the Senate budget. The budget for salaries and benefits on our budget was reduced by the $919,000 from money that was set aside for phase 2 of our salary study. If that money is restored, we'll restore it back to that line item. But we're still able to achieve a balanced budget and pursue all of the priorities that we set in our first 2 readings and on our first 2 budget workshops and then our first reading. And if anything changes and we have additional funding, I will bring a budget amendment back in July once the state passes their final budget. And again, this is our revenue and expense comparisons. I've provided history from the FY 23-24 amended budget that we did in April. The first reading budget of the $475.9 million, and then you see where we are, second reading, our total revenue, projected revenue goes to $475 million. Overall, this is a 10.5% increase in our projected revenues, and the majority of that money is coming from our local revenues. And you can see under our expenses, our salaries are still 85% of our total budget, and 15% is our purchase service and our supplies. Again, our revenue growth over the last 5 years, we've gone from $314.7 million in 2020, 2021 to $475 million for 24-25. And again, you can see last year our amended budget was $424.8 million, and that's about a $50.1 million increase. Our revenues increased by $50,155,916, which is a 10.5% increase. Again, we're going to start our first year teacher salaries at $52,450, which surpasses the state's minimum teacher salary of $50,000 by 2026. So we're surpassing that goal and we're meeting it early. And this is about a $7,053 increase over our first year teacher salary in FY 23-24, which was $45,397. And that number comes from the 3% increase that was provided in April, plus this additional $5,691. All other eligible employees will get an additional 1% pay increase in addition to the 3% that they were provided in April of 2024. And eligible employees will get their standard step increase, which is between a 1% and a 2% increase for their additional year of experience. And our salary schedules will be increased to 31 years with a plan to add up to 35 years over the next 2 years. And I've made a note of your question, Ms. Wofford, to get you how many employees are affected this year. Berkeley County School District will decrease the millage rate from 151.8 to 141.9, and we will achieve a fiscally sound balanced budget. Planning ahead, employees with approved additional years of relevant experience will have the years granted effective July 1, 2024. This was part of what was approved in phase 1 of our salary study to provide additional years of relevant experience because they were capped at 5 years, bringing in 5 years of experience. HR is working on that now, and our plan is for that to be on the July 30th paycheck. So that way we have plenty of time for payroll and HR to work together to get those years set correctly, and that will be retro paid back to July 1, and then that'll set their salary for the remaining paychecks for the year. The salary committee will still continue to work on phase 2 of the salary study, which is primarily focuses on revising the section of the salary book related to stipends, supplements, and rural school mileage. And the salary committee will continue to review FY 24-25 salaries of other South Carolina school districts to ensure BCSD remains competitive to attract and recruit the highest qualified staff for our students. I will tell you the basis of our comparison is we're the 4th largest school district in the state. So typically I use the top 3, Horry County being the closest to us. But there's Greenville, Charleston, Horry, and Berkeley. Any revisions to the state's budget that impact BCSD will be brought back to the school board in July as a budget amendment, and any additional funds will be allocated to increase instructional budgets and to restore the salary and benefits for the phase 2 of the salary study. I did share with you the question that Mr. Barrow asked in the last meeting to increase the school level budgets by 20% is $3.6 million. Obviously, we had to reduce our budget by 919, so we don't have that additional funding. However, we did run reports based on the concerns expressed that in our schools still have about $6 million in schools service and supply budgets to spend for this year. So if anybody is in need of anything, they need to reach out to me and I will work with them to make sure they have what they need to operate. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Ramsey, I'll now hear a motion for the general fund budget second reading. I move to approve the 2024-2025 general fund budget second reading as presented.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, 2-0. We'll now hear the request for the fund balance for 24-25 general fund budget.
Yes, ma'am. As I stated, we're still waiting on the state to finalize their budget. They sent us some correspondence on Friday that said it may not be approved by July 1 and asked us to put together a contingency plan. Therefore, my contingency plan is not to ask for a continuing resolution, but to request the use of fund balance until a final state budget is passed, and we're looking at July 2nd to be that date. Approximately 6.6 million of our total budget increase came from our state revenues, which ends up being about $550,000 for 1 month. I don't even expect us to use 1 month or any even touch fund balance, but by doing this, it allows us to go ahead and move forward to making all the changes to our payroll database and all that in time for the July 15th payroll. And we're not waiting on we need every possible day we can to get these updates done instead of waiting on the state to pass their final budget and then everybody getting a regular check on July 15th and then having to redo and do retroactive back to July 1 after the state passes. So, but my recommendation is to use fund balance for until the state passes their budget, and then as soon as the state passes their budget, it'll immediately revoke the use of fund balance for anything. And again, I expect that to be by July 2nd at the latest.
So in the past, we've done a continuing resolution, but a continuing resolution would take today's salaries into July, which would keep our folks from seeing the pay increases that they're expecting to see. So if we use the fund balance, we can implement all of the pay increases we've planned and move forward. Should we limit that to a month or until the first meeting in August, that if they haven't passed a budget by then, we need to reconsider?
I think the motion reads for it to automatically be revoked once the state submits a budget, but we can certainly revisit that if by the next board meeting the state has not passed the budget, that we can revisit this.
Okay.
So if the state passes the budget on July 2nd, this is basically moot. This is just in case they don't. So let's say they don't, and then there are some fund balances, funds that require to be spent. As soon as the state approve the budget, we would replenish the fund balance from the general fund budget that was passed. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
So I move to approve the use of fund balance as needed to support the 24-25 general fund budget beginning July 1, 2024. This approval will be automatically revoked immediately upon the state legislature's passage of the 24-25 state budget.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, 2-0. I now move to adjourn the Finance and Human Resources Committee meeting. Can I get a second, Mr. Ramsey?
Second.
There's a motion to adjourn by Wofford, a second by Ramsey. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it.